Like you said, I think there is a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes, famously so, like on a level that we perhaps may not even be able to fathom until like we die and review this whole lifetime and be like, wow, like I don't even think we have enough time in a day to really actually know what's going on, because it's just a catalyst in a way, in my opinion, for the whole planet, and for perhaps, as many of us have been talking about, more of like an ascension wave, where it's like a catalyst to initiate people into higher levels of consciousness. And some people won't, they aren't going to reach a certain level of consciousness where they perhaps relate to me on that subject. But I believe that it's probably inevitable for people to at least go another stage, reach another level, and on a community basis too. So I'm still trying to wrap my brain around why they're doing so much social isolation, and why all of the people who are being paid by YouTube or by any other type of entertainment, company to tell people. I've seen deliberately over and over and over and over the messages tell people to stay home. And so I'm like, okay, well, in the Law of One, as an example, they say that leisure time is basically one of the best times for people to actually expand and grow, do the inner work, the outer work, because they don't have other things demanding their attention, especially survival. And hopefully we're all going to be getting, in my opinion, we will be getting, and it seems like we will be getting support financially, and we're getting support by basically all the structures of government to stay home, which is phenomenal. And I honestly never thought it was going to be this drastic. I know what part of me thought it could be, but I'm surprised every day by how they're able to keep it going. Like they're still doing it. It was for sure going to like dissolve in a few days, like a lot of stuff has, but this is a real deal in my opinion. And it's like, I'm so grateful to be observing it with you, especially because you have such a great perspective on a lot of it too, and pick up a lot of nuances in the political realm that I see, but I don't exactly, not always jump into as much as you can.
I think we get that divine masculine, divine feminine, like counterpart intuition on different levels. Because from the beginning, like you just said, you were saying that it was like from like the January, early February time period, when before it really hit Europe and before it hit the US, when it was still growing in China.
Yeah.
She was like getting all this downloads about it being like an ascension wave. And I didn't really understand totally what you meant at that time period, but I was like, okay, like I could kind of see that it's acting as a catalyst, but she didn't even entirely understand what she was like receiving on that level as far as it being an ascension wave. But it makes more sense now, because it's like, it's providing all this catalyst for spiritual growth. So like you brought up the Law of One, I was going to say the same thing. Like the Law of One talks about how these kind of dark night of the soul time periods and these rougher periods for the collective act as huge catalysts for spiritual growth, for polarity in either direction, positive or negative. And it seems like that's really what we're experiencing. And I know David Wilcock brought up in his recent live streams a similar thing that I've been thinking about with the Law of One, which is there's a quote in there that basically the questioner is asking like Ra has said that only a kind of a small portion of the consciousness at that time period were ready for this shift. And the questioner was like, okay, what are the chances that we could have like an event where the whole collective, the whole planet is kind of waking up at once? And Ra says something along the lines of, well, it's not very practical, but it's ever probable
he said
I think it happened.
He said it's a possibility, but it's not a probability.
Right. That's right. Yeah. Ever possible, but not probable. That's what it was.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
And I really resonated with that. And it really feels like that we are like, well, from the beginning, I felt like this is like a timeline shift.
Yeah.
Like this is like a huge catalyst again for the collective to potentially shift one way or the other. So are we going to play into fear and darkness in the negative timelines, or are we going to use this as an opportunity to come together as a collective and like really change humanity for the better? And I think all negative things give us that opportunity.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like where we've been seeing it from the spiritual level. But then of course there's like the more 3D or more tangible side of like what's occurring with these
cultural, sociological sort of observations. Like,
yeah.
It's been so cool to watch everybody all of a sudden learn more and actually start to understand frequency technology and weapons and so on, because that's been going on long time, like very long time, that they've been working with electromagnetic frequencies, making them, using them on people. They put through the TVs back in the day. And so now they're thinking that it's possible a new frequency weapon was used on the people, and that's what was killing people. And I'm like, it's very
You're
possible.
Talking about 5G, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, even if that's what it really is, like I'm fuzzy about all of the definitive details about what the threats are and what what the threats are. And I believe there's a lot of redirection going on and a lot of like illusions going on, but overall the conversations being done are conversations like people who we've all met, like yourselves and other people in our community have been having for years, trying to understand and talk to our families about, and now it's coming to the mainstream. And it's just been like a tidal wave. It's been intense. And also bioengineering and, space like is coming into it.
If you remember back at 2018 Dimensions of Disclosure, and they asked everybody at the end on the panel, what is disclosure to you? And everyone answered. I don't think anyone could have guessed that this was how this was disclosure. You know what I mean? But that's the only way it can happen. We can't know how it's going to happen. It just has to kind of blindside us, and we have to adapt and react. And we're humans. We've made it this far, so we can problem solve. We can do stuff like this. And this is like a test of humanity. Also, how can we evolve? How can we navigate? How can we tackle this situation? So it's really cool to see things playing out right now. I mean, it's not cool to see the deaths. You know where I'm going with it, though.
We understand.
Well, yeah, it's like, obviously we all follow Q, and the community that's been kind of following Q and the disclosure community has been preparing for an event of this caliber for some time period. But like you said, none of us would have ever guessed that it would have been like a killer virus that was going to, take over the world. And
invisible enemy.
Right, the invisible enemy, which of course, I don't believe the virus is actually taking over the world. I don't think it's a serious threat to humankind. And that's where we're still like kind of, at least me personally, inconclusive about what, on a physical level, what this hidden enemy actually is. Like, Is it, I mean, I feel like it's most likely a bioweapon, like a viral bioweapon, but a lot of people think it's the whole 5G thing, which could very well be a part of it. But I mean, I personally don't know. And also, if you compare the cases, the positive cases in the United States to the sealed indictments map, there's a huge correlation between those two maps. And so that's where we start getting into this territory of like, is this virus being used as a smokescreen for certain military operations to take place? And I think regardless of the origin of the virus, like the virus, we can probably all conclude is a legitimate thing to a certain degree. Like there is some kind of hidden enemy there, but it seems like that the good guys, like the Alliance or the White Hats or the Q team, the positive forces of good on the planet, human and maybe non-human, are using the tactical advantage of a lockdown, like a nationwide lockdown and potentially a global lockdown, to conduct these military operations, which we were just talking about, like have been in the works for years now, but we never knew how it was going to play out. And this just happened to provide like that catalyst for those operations to then take place.
And you're talking about the military operations. You know how they came up there in the press conference the other day and said the ships have been deployed in the Caribbean Sea for the drug cartel and all this stuff. Well, I read an article, which I don't know if it's true, but allegedly those ships arrived in February. They were already there at the time of the announcement. And, like you said, we always find out about this stuff after it happens. Mm-hmm. They could have never made that announcement and said they're deploying now, because that would just give up that would show their hand.
Mm-hmm.
So if that article was accurate, they're already there, and that proves to me right there that this isn't about the virus.
Yeah.
Right.
If they were there in February,
and it makes sense to me that they would conduct the operations before they publicly talked about them, because you got to ask, like, why would these top-ranking military generals like Mark Milley and a couple others get on stage right before the COVID like daily briefing and give this whole military briefing? And in the past week, we've seen a huge increase in them saying over and over and over, this is a war. This is a military operation. The military is handling this. Like, they've said that over and over and over.
People are seeing military all around the country, and tanks in LA and stuff in New York, and like the tents in Central Park are going up, and like, what's that all about? There's all this stuff that doesn't line up with this virus. Or it's like, there's something else going on here that's really big.
Well, I don't know if you guys listened to Laura Eisenhower's roundtable with John D'Souza, Michael Sala, and Mike Barra.
Not yet. I haven't pulled up though.
You need to. It's amazing.
To me, I don't like to use this term, but it's a definition of like the bombshell interview.
Yeah.
Wow.
They
really
blow the lid on this entire thing from all angles. Everything. I watch your guys' videos, and I'm sure you know what we talk about, but everything we talk about, they're confirming it. Like, and
Nice.
but they're bringing insider information.
Right.
New theories that I haven't even heard, like the tents and the ships are not just for the children and the women from the trafficking, but they're getting intel that it's possibly for military casualties.
Right.
When this operation takes, whenever when they get the green light, who knows what's going to happen? They've been training for underground battle for a long time. We know this. The articles are out there. They've been training.
They've specifically been training to fight underground.
Yeah.
And like underground tunnels.
So
did you hear about the Bloomberg underground tunnel under Central Park?
Yeah.
That they're doing operations in right now?
Yeah.
And then Ben Chastain brought up the point that Epstein has a mansion right there, right next to Central Park.
And I think the Pope too. I think the Pope and Epstein's mansion were like back to back, right in that area.
I mean,
speaking of underground, I know you saw this today, Jayse. The Playboy Mansion. They're digging up around the Playboy Mansion. Now, Kate Awakening actually went on Edge of Wonder Live like a year ago or less than a year ago, and kind of blew the whistle on the underground tunnels. Maybe she didn't blow the whistle, but she had some information just because she's personally been there. And so if that is true, they're probably, to me, they're trying to fill in those tunnels, dig them up, eliminate them. So when you go search that home, there are no tunnels to find.
Hide the evidence.
Yeah, they're hiding the evidence.
Well, and there's that whole thing with Oprah too, right? That big Oprah's house being seized, and all these pictures and documentation of them excavating tunnels, and not the tunnels. The rumors were the tunnels were going into the ocean off the coast of Florida, and that would make sense because Oprah was right up there with like Harvey Weinstein and John of God, who were very much involved in that stuff. So I think we're getting a lot of these bases and these locations that have been conducting these negative trafficking operations are being seized right now. But I'm thinking, like you were saying earlier, that the majority of this stuff has probably already been done, or at least what we're hearing about publicly has already been taken care of, so as not to jeopardize the operation. Right. But as Trump has said the past couple days, these next 2 weeks are going to be the most imperative and the most heavy, and he keeps saying they're going to be really hard to get through, and that is negative and kind of like verbiage that might make people a little bit nervous, but I think is a good foreshadowing prep, and one of the things you guys were just talking about was the military operations underground, and that there could actually be military casualties. And he keeps saying like people will die these next 2 weeks, and it doesn't feel like he's talking about the virus.
No.
And if these operations are being conducted in these spaces, like at the very least, we have the cartels being taken out, which are the army of the deep states, so to say. They are one of the like ground forces. But then on the higher levels, we have these other mercenary groups that also probably have armed protection. When the Alliance is going in to take out these groups, they're likely not going to go with them easily. They're likely going to put up a fight. And this is probably that kind of last stand for these deep state and shadow groups before they are exposed and turned over to the light completely.
I've been thinking about the boats and the tents a lot. And I'm also getting something about like not only casualties in the military, but casualties of the people that they were going in to get. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like those people are going to be dying.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Really not. What we're seeing is a symptom of what the entire planet is going through right now. It's just happening even down to our little groups.
Yeah.
It's everybody's going through something right now, and we're all going to learn from this. Every time you get on that page, you're going to get triggered. You're not going to agree with something, but that might be the catalyst, or that might be whatever it is you needed for your next step in your evolution and your journey. So it's just the way things are playing out right now.
I really feel the collective dark night of the soul is happening right now. Like it's ramping up at least. Yeah. It's like everyone's junk is coming up, and everything that's once been hidden is coming to light, and people are waking up like never before, but that means people are having to deal with these really hard truths and realities.
Yeah, and what's a common?
A lot of people are having a hard time.
Yeah,
with a lot right now.
And what happens when you're not used to that? Somebody is first time they're experiencing the first time. You point fingers. You externally. You don't process it. It's all external. You find somewhere else to put it. And I know, Alexis, you can probably touch on that.
Okay, so what I was thinking when you guys were just saying that was, I never pictured it this way, but I was trying to, like I said, I'm trying to understand why they're having people at home so intensely. And I'm like, okay, what is it? But like you mentioned, some people have never gone through this kind of level of revelation before. And the state in which everyone's brainwaves and their person is usually held at is in a state of survival and this like false matrix routine. And it kills all their energy, it kills all of their resources. And so they've been at home rebuilding themselves right now in a way too, sleeping more than probably they ever have, like for years. Maybe.
I definitely have.
eating more, communicating more, having time on their own. And I'm like, oh, it feels like almost it's a really wise thing to do if you are later going to give people something that they need to process that's heavier than they've ever processed before.
Yes.
And it's like, wow,
yes.
Divinely, it seems like people are really being set up to have the reserves to deal with this emotionally, mentally, physically. Like people will literally be throwing up. It's happened to many of us. These things are very intense topics.
Yes. I felt the same, actually. It's almost like it's forcing us all to slow down, to reconnect with each other, to kind of like break us of our nonstop going, the mind control, the everything that's a part of this matrix system that so many of us have been stuck in for so long. It's like it's forcing us out of that to come back to ourselves and come back to each other and slow down. And
despite the effort of like the news, like really trying.
Really, yeah. Well, that's why they're trying so hard to push the fear.
Yeah.
Because they're desperate to keep that alive, to keep people in a state of fear. Panic.
Go ahead, Jayse. I was
going to say that the other end of the spectrum along those same lines is that, they're saying that the deep state really wants people also to stay in their homes, but for a different reason. Yeah. And that's to continue crashing the economy, right? Because even though we understand that this is a whole like spiritual awakening and that this is good for us, the deep state kind of wants a similar thing, but for the other purpose. And they want to see the economy continue to go down. They want to see people not going back to work. They want to see people being in fear and panicking and not knowing what's going on, being in confusion. But it's kind of backfiring on them because as people are staying home, we are connecting. We are going inward. We're like spending more time with ourselves and with our family members and our pets and our loved ones. And
dreaming more.
Dreaming and taking care of ourselves, hopefully. Purging probably, like everything.
So
Yeah,
speaking of dreaming,
exactly.
I want to share. I've never shared. I don't know if I've ever shared a dream. I never share my dreams, but I had such a profound dream the other night on Sunday
Yes.
night. I want to share
So,
it.
but I mean, all will be revealed, I feel like, in
That
time.
would be optimal timeline, right? We can put
Yeah,
ourselves on that
yeah.
timeline.
I mean, who else is going to give us
Exactly.
all a free flying car?
Yeah.
You get a flying car.
You get a
flying
flying
car.
Yeah,
Check under your seat.
okay. Check on your
There's a little device. You just slap it on your car.
check on your slip. There's a
You get a free energy device.
there's a replicator under every one's.
Yeah.
Man, we need to be pulling through for Oprah now.
I want to hear about your dream.
Okay, so it was a really wild. It was a active night. I had I'll start off. I'll do this as quickly as possible too. I had an astral projection, which I've done in the past before. I never initiated. It just happens, and it happened, and it's been a while. And when that happens, you're aware. You're consciously aware. But the problem was this time is I couldn't make it through the ceiling. Usually just go right through the walls. I couldn't get out of the room. I was like, what the heck? So then I was like trying so hard to focus on not losing the experience. But like, because I couldn't get out, I came back into my body. And as soon as I did, I heard my cell phone on the nightstand sound like static electricity, like zzz, zzz. And like my charger was like making this noise. And I went to grab my phone in my hand. I started getting shocked, and I couldn't let go of my hand. I couldn't let go of my phone because it was like, when you get shocked, your muscles constrict. And I like finally shook the phone free from my hand. And I was under such like a spell, I guess you would call it. I just knocked back out. Like I couldn't even, and I remember laying there looking at my hand to see if like it left a mark or anything on my hand. And I finally I couldn't keep my eyes open, and I was like in a coma. And then the next thing I remember, which was super lucid, I was in my living room looking out the front door, and I saw a cloud form in the sky and then take off. And it was like a cloaked ship, but it was like an H-shaped craft. After it started going, I could see the shape of it. And some people were on my couch in the living room. I don't know, like my friends or whoever. I'm like, you guys, there's a cloaked craft out here. And they're just like, yeah, whatever. And then I turned back around and look, and one of those like Star Destroyer craft that like William Tompkins talks about was in the sky, just like taking over the whole sky right up above my house.
Whoa.
I'm like screaming. I'm like, you guys, just freaking Star Destroyer outside. You guys got to see this. And they're not even getting off the couch. They don't care. I'm like, you have no idea. Come look at this. And then I look up in the sky, and some guy is like parachuting down, and he lands in my yard, and it's an army officer, an army man, whatever. And I was like, yo, what's up, man? And I could tell he was like thirsty. I was like, do you need a drink of water? And he's like, yeah. So he came in my house, and I was real nervous, and I was trying to pour him a glass of water, and I was the Gans water.
Nice.
And I was spilling it everywhere. And I offered him a peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
Aww.
But here's where it gets wild. So we go.
This is where it gets wild? That's already pretty wild.
So we walk back out. So we go outside, like to go back in the front yard, but everything's different. There's these massive trees in my front yard with like cars up on top of them and like airplane parts. And there's craft everywhere in the sky. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff going on. And I look over to my neighbor's yard, and there's like a football team in like a red uniform, but they're like lost. They don't know how they got there. And that officer guy, he's like, oh shit, the portals are open. And I was like, what? He's like, yeah, the portals are open. So everything, like all these like dimensions were like merging, and stuff was coming through the portals. And there was these craft in the sky, and it was just the most intense thing I've ever seen. And then on to top it all off, overtaking the whole sky in the clouds was Trump, and beneath,
like his head?
His whole upper half of his body, and then like at a podium, but on the podium were praying hands, and yeah, and I was like, oh, like, what is going on? Like, is Trump the savior?
Trump is God.
Yeah, and
It's a prophet.
He is Jesus.
He is Jesus.
And then it just, after that, some kids started shooting bottle rockets at us, and then I woke up.
Whoa, that's deep, man.
Yeah, and there was some more details. I wrote it down as much as I could remember.
Good.
But it was just, I thought about it like multiple times a day since Sunday. It happened Sunday night. And I don't know if there was some type of portal that was open like astrologically that night or something. I don't know what the portal thing.
That is what I feel like is like one of the potentiated timelines of how this shift is actually going to happen. And the fact that you're saying like portals, like this army guy was saying that the portals were converging or opening up makes a lot of sense to me intuitively. Because what I thought of when you said that, and that I've been thinking about a lot lately, is I remember listening to these channelings years ago.
Oh, yeah.
A series of different galactic channelings that all kind of discussed the same circumstances for how the shift would happen, you know, like the micronova or just like the ascension event. And what they were saying, the kind of patterning between these channelings was that in the months preceding the event, so leading up to it, about a year to 6 months beforehand, things would really start to get really strange in the social, political domain. Like governments would start collapsing, things would start falling apart on the structural level. And that's what we're observing. And then they said the next thing that would happen is that dimensional anomalies would start happening. So things would start disappearing, like objects would start disappearing more, and objects would appear more. And there would be like kind of different colors starting to appear, and like kind of a slow progression over a couple months of that happening, leading up to a point where the veil between the different dimensions was really thin. And a lot of them went into this kind of 3 days of darkness type thing after that, which I don't know if I intuitively vibe with that for the current timeline we're on. Like if we're going to go through that kind of spiritual 3 days of darkness, it might be more of the symbolic 3 days of darkness with the shutdown that would happen.
Yeah.
Which maybe that was symbology for that the whole time, but that things would get really dimensionally weird right before the shift happened. And that's what I was thinking about when you were saying that. And that makes total sense that, you know, the military groups, the secret space programs are probably going to try to be, even if they're the alliance, they're the good guys, they're probably going to be trying to control the way the event is playing out on the planet as much as possible, even if it's for service to others. Like, because that's just what they do, right? They like protect and they want to make sure they're running kind of the operations. So I could totally see if like secret space program crafts just started showing up by accident and like people were confused and coming out of the crafts and like being like, oh my God, the portals are open. And like, that makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, it was wild. It was definitely wild.
It's that Gans water.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
and PB&J's apparently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, it's also interesting. I was meditating in the backyard today, looking for clarity, specifically on the this child trafficking thing.
Yeah.
And what's going on with these tunnels. I was just looking for clarity. And my dog was going crazy, like not barking, but I could hear her actively like digging at something and like making all these noises and kind of whimpering. And I finally was forced to look over, and I have some firewood stacked up like a log pile. And she was digging underneath this log pile, and I didn't know what the heck she was going after. And I got up and realized there's a garter snake. She was digging to get to this snake, which I thought was symbolic of like, okay, so she's like digging under the tunnel, like digging a tunnel to get out the snake, like that, like the
wow.
snake grass. And I was just like, wow, this is like totally perfect, lining up perfectly with what I was trying to achieve with the meditation, but the sign was like right there. It was just, that was just another confirmation.
Excellent
Very
job.
keen. Yeah, very keen. I think that we should all be like paying attention to those kind of symbolic things in our lives, because if we pay attention to it. That's what a vision
quest is all about.
Yeah.
You got to look for those like physical cues.
Yeah.
It's like, in my opinion, that's like what they make they used to make all the kids do that as a rite of passage.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
the hints are everywhere.
We were talking about mainstream earlier, and we got pulled off, like what the mainstream is pushing right now and all this, like, and this is like the deep state's last ditch effort. I don't know if you guys noticed, but Jimmy Kimmel, Jimmy Fallon, and Stephen Colbert are putting on this massive worldwide show called, I wrote it down, One World Alone Together on April 18th, and it's curated by Lady Gaga.
Oh,
and,
God.
And this is going to be shown. It's all over the world. Every major network, Comedy Central, MTV, ABC, NBC, they're going to overtake the entire world, everything. They're going to
shut it off before they get to do it.
Well, that's what I'm wondering.
That's what I think.
So
sorry.
No, you should look into it. Like, there isn't one network that's not hardly named. It's going to air from 8 to 10. And
so pretty much you turn on the TV and this is what you're going to be watching.
And they're going to be promoting their message, whatever it is. And it's
clear. That sounds like the counter-op to what David was explaining with the
exactly
24-hour streaming of the disclosure stuff.
Or maybe it is the op and we're just being judgmental.
Maybe that's how they're going to sneak people into watching it. It's going to be all these guys talking about what's actually been happening. That would be crazy.
That would be.
I don't think that would happen, but that would be wild.
Yeah. But
so what date is that?
18th.
April 18th. So Saturday, 8 p.m.
Well,
8 p.m. to 10 p.m. We'll see if that happens.
I mean,
yeah,
that would, that's a week from this weekend.
It's a huge warning.
Also, this weekend this Friday is Good Friday, and that's the 4/10/20 that we've been hearing about from Q.
Yeah.
So we're all kind of waiting to see if that 3-day shutdown is actually going to happen during this time period.
Yeah, I have something to add onto that. I told Aaron about it. So I work with a pendulum, and I quit for a while. I finally took a pendulum class with my dad and really figured out I was doing a lot of stuff wrong. I wasn't protecting it. There's just a number of things I wasn't doing to make sure I was getting an accurate reading. So after this class, I really started taking it seriously and tapping in and making sure that, like, because every time you use it, you're opening a little mini portal. And if you're not putting up the protection or making sure that, it is of the light, a being of the light, then who knows. But so I wanted to ask last week about this shutdown last week. And I said, is it going to happen? Is a 3-day shutdown really going to happen this week? I said, no. I said, is it going to happen next week? I said, yes. I said, okay. And I left it at that. So then just like a day ago or two, I pulled it out again and I wrote down the dates, April 4th through the 12th. And for clarity, and I wanted to see, I said, is the shutdown still happening this week? And yes. And then I wanted clarity on the date, and I went to 4, no, 5, no, 6, and it was no. And when I got to 10, it was a big yes.
Whoa.
So it would be Friday the 10th, Good Friday.
That's 4/10/20.
Yeah, 4/10/20. Now I don't know if
it's biblical.
It's biblical.
Now,
exactly.
Nobody listening, please don't put weight into that. I'm not making a prediction.
He's just saying
it's just what the reading I got said. We'll see.
Don't make this Allison Coe situation.
I've been getting Easter. Yeah. I've been getting Easter nonstop. Like, wait for Easter. I'm like, yeah, Easter's the best time. Everyone, he ascended on Easter Sunday. Like,
and Trump has been talking about Easter too. He's like, Easter's going to be great.
I know.
It's going to be fantastic.
I thought maybe your dream would have something about Easter in it, but I didn't parse any of that out from listening to it. I was like, dang it.
Well, that would be the perfect 3 days. If it was Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
People would get it.
That would be very synchronistic.
Yeah, that's what I agree. If it's going to be biblical, like how
much more biblical?
You can't get more symbolic. I mean, everything. Yeah.
And this is the Holy Week for Christians. Like that's the
it's already started.
The Christian religion has kind of been used by Q as or I should say, Q seems to be working with Christians the most out of any other religion because it applies to the most people in America, and I think it has the most potential for waking people up to the darkness on the planet.
Yeah.
So that would be very powerful.
English-speaking people, really in general, is like the most prominent religion.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now they're not getting that atheist push that we were seeing on Netflix and all this stuff. Now Now they have a source that is actually promoting something they believe in. So it's part of like, it's also like a slap in the face to the deep state. Like, we're going to bring this light back into this battle.
I wanted to bring up one other thing that I saw today, which is an executive order that the White House put out yesterday. I don't know if you guys saw this, having to do with space exploration.
No.
So yesterday, on April 6th, Trump signed an executive order from the White House entitled Executive Order on Encouraging International Support for the Recovery and Use of Space Resources.
Really?
And it basically discusses how they want to put more resources and work with the various space infrastructure groups, both private and public, to get humans into space. Get humans into space as soon as possible. And they talk about moon mining. They talk about putting humans on Mars and other places. And what I found particularly interesting was that they use the word recovery of space resources rather than like allocation or creation or something like that, inferring that the space resources like technology are already there and that they have to just go and recover them. So obviously, as we know from like all the insiders that we've been following, that there's space infrastructure that is on the moon and on Mars and all over the solar system.
An excellent argument for it anyways, and this definitely seems to add to that.
Yeah.
So like we have to go and recover those is kind of what it seems like they're saying. Although in the actual executive order, they obviously don't talk about existing infrastructure, but they use the word recovery more in terms of like recovering the minerals and the various things that we would be mining. But I feel like it has a double meaning there.
Oh.
And this is super interesting too, because not only was it a jammer, but it was the last satellite to complete a constellation of satellites for a new communication system, which includes a jammer, I guess, which kind of makes sense that they would want a communications jammer in their communications constellation, a constellation being a grouping of satellites that communicate with each other. And so what they were saying with the Space Force launch, which, is the first time Space Force has officially put anything into space, they're saying that it is completely replacing the old communications network that the military was using. And that's kind of oddly familiar when you think about the Q posts from over a year ago, when they were talking about the intelligence communication satellites that they were taking offline that were ironically called Corona.
Yes.
Isn't that like an interesting synchronicity there? Like they're like Corona 4 offline, Corona 6 offline, 20 offline.
Yeah.
And then now we have, Corona.
We had Tim Sanders on our pop-up podcast, and that guy is totally getting shadow banned right now. He really brings some, I don't know if he drops the ball or what, but he really brings light to what could possibly be taking place with this 5G in the coronavirus. And he's coming from he has credible scientists that he's working with, and they've been working with Tesla technology for their products. They understand they are working with science and spirituality. That's how they do it. So they understand the consciousness aspect of this virus, and that's what he thinks is really taking place. This is more of a consciousness virus, and it's like the whole holographic universe thing. But they understand that, so it's not just a 5G like affecting us physically, but it's something about what gets into our consciousness, and we believe. It's like the placebo effect or the hypochondriac thing. Once you believe the virus is real and you believe that you're sick, you don't actually have to.
I think
you can get the virus that way. And then that's what they're banking on with this push.
I was going to ask you on the consciousness subject if you thought maybe the virus was Prince Philip reincarnated, but I had to look it up, and he's still alive actually. But he had that comment about wanting to reincarnate as a virus and destroy the planet, but he's still alive. I didn't realize that.
Is he though?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Is he though?
Is anyone we know in the public figures in the public eye still alive? As far as deep state, Hillary, Barack Obama apparently tested positive with COVID-19 today.
What?
Wait, who?
Obama.
Really?
I've been
Now-
wondering what's been going on with
Whoa.
him. Like,
No, I
It's
have
so
not.
quiet.
I saw a couple
That's so
people
funny.
sharing it. I haven't read the article. I
He
haven't looked
tweeted
into
it.
it. I haven't looked into it or anything. I just know that it's flying around the internet right now. So if it's
It'll
real,
leave it.
I don't know.
that is so weird.
But
Coincidental.
what I was going to touch on, so that roundtable we were talking about with Laura Eisenhower,
Yes.
another juicy piece of info they dropped was that allegedly these defibrillators or ventilators, the ventilators are are actually they actually speed up the process and kill the person faster. That's why the deep state is pushing for this, because what happens with this specific virus, it closes off the lungs from getting any oxygen. You can't get oxygen into the lungs. So when you hook them up to a ventilator, you're pumping oxygen in around the lungs and around the organs, and it actually causes the body to fail at a quicker rate. And this is the reason we're seeing this big ventilator push. That's why they're always asking about these ventilators, and they're wanting to get them out there. So if that's,
interesting.
if that's really true, but what the I can't say it. Now I can't say it. But what that does is almost immediately frees up the lungs.
Right.
And that's the key aspect of that.
That makes a lot of sense, honestly.
Yeah.
And why the deep state's trying to push them so much and constantly asking about them.
Exactly.
I saw a reporter point out, presumably a reporter that is on the side of the alliance, pointed out that the hydroxychloroquine isn't patented by a big pharma group, and that without insurance, you can get a full dosage of it for like $100, around $100, which is really like a good price for if you don't have insurance.
Yeah.
And they were pointing out, like, pay attention to these reporters and these different groups who are pushing against hydroxychloroquine and for something else, because they likely want to either get a patented vaccine in there, which of course they do, make a bunch of money off of it, or is hydroxychloroquine with a different alternative prescription drug that is owned or patented by a big pharma group that can profit a bunch off of it. So that's like their main reason they don't want people on it, because it's like, well, one, it helps, but two, it's really cheap and accessible.
And I'm also reading that coupled with other things, it can cure cancer and other diseases potentially as well. And this is like something they know, and they're scared of.
But then it opens up the door to like, what else have we been lied to? What else cures for cancer or everything else are there? And
well, and that's where we know there's like technology that could address this kind of stuff probably way more effectively than any prescription drug could, like advanced healing tech.
exactly.
And I'm sure a lot of people out there are like, well, why don't they just push out and roll out these, healing beds and plasma technology and stuff like that? And there's a ton of like legal reasons why they can't, of course, but it seems like that this grouping of meds, the hydroxychloroquine and the Z-Pak and the zinc, are like the best kind of official cure that meets all the legal standards and everything that they can put out.
Have you guys noticed? I've been telling Aaron this. All the drip disclosure we've been getting in the background while this is going on with Antarctica, they're saying there's a highly likely chance of they found life on Mercury. They found solid evidence of a rainforest existing 90 million years ago in Antarctica, and the ice is melting. There's a lot of stuff happening that
they're turning up that faucet.
But if this wouldn't be going on right now, we would all be talking about that, right?
Right.
That would be this, because that's just the way it works. You guys know Siobhan.
Yes.
So I was editing one of her sessions, editing the audio, and she's like, this one's really good. I want to put this out there. The audio was all screwed up. You couldn't hear him. So I spent some time and, got it all balanced out for her. But one of the messages this guy got was that this digital currency was actually a gift from the star people, that that there's so much black magic and so much negativity, even just holding physical cash alone, like has a negative reaction with your body. And like, so this whole digital currency thing is actually what they want us to go towards. So we can get our hands off of that. Karma. I mean, I don't know. What I'm trying
that makes a lot of sense. Like just even touching it, because you get those feelings of greed and like ownership. Yeah. Whereas if it's out of the physical world, you like don't even have that physical connection to it. And that's super validating. I'm glad that that's the message that you heard.
Yeah, and if I can find that session, I'll send it to you, because I really didn't do it justice. You should hear the message coming through him. Yeah, it's pretty powerful, and it was like.
And eventually, money's going to go away altogether. Eventually, but there has to be this transition.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what I've gotten on that note, and you might have heard it in like our last podcast or video, but I've been in the past like week or so, I got messages from Spirit to start looking into crypto, and previously I was pretty like opposed to any financial timeline that included cryptocurrency, because in my head I was like, well, we want something more tangible. We want at least gold backed, if not like trading with coins again, or going back to something that's like actually real. And I was like, crypto is off in that AI universe. Like it's not tangible. You could lose it, blah, blah, blah. And Spirit was like, well, just try looking into it. And since I've been looking into it, I feel like I've been getting so many downloads about how this technology can be used to help liberate humanity. And
like digital currency and like trading,
right? The digital currency side of things.
Okay.
And since then, the whole thing with the Fed and the Treasury merging happened, and Steve Mnuchin at the Treasury, who's been at most of these COVID briefings, he actually was discussing using cryptocurrency, specifically stable coins, which are crypto coins that are a 1-to-1 ratio to the US dollar. They're called stable coins, and people basically just use them to, instead of trading back totally to the US dollar, they'll trade to one of these, and then it'll keep your money from like fluctuating. And he was saying that they were thinking seriously about using stable coins and crypto to disperse financial funds to the people, and using it to get these stimulus checks out there. So rather than like writing a check, you could have the option of receiving it via some kind of cryptocurrency. And then they also announced that they're looking into digitizing the US dollar and creating a crypto US dollar that is based on the blockchain. And of course, that has the whole crypto community super excited, because at the same time, I've been really like kind of studying the crypto community and what they're all thinking and
their psychology.
Yeah, they're their own little world and psychological understandings and everything. But ultimately, whether crypto was created, like Bitcoin was created by the dark or the light, it's hard to say because it was mostly anonymous. It seems like the majority of people who use it, at least in the public sphere, are using it because they want to bring the sovereignty and the power and their finances back to the people rather than a governing authority. And so they're looking at all this money that the Fed is pumping into the economy. Of course, trillions and trillions of dollars right now that the Federal Reserve and the Treasury and like BlackRock banking, which that's a whole thing too. I don't know if you guys heard about that, but BlackRock, huge like deep state bank, they're using them to allocate these funds to the Treasury. So it's like they've taken this bank and it seems like they've reverse infiltrated it on behalf of the alliance, and they're using it to bring that energy like back to the people. And I think they're doing the same thing with the Fed. I think they're going to drain the Fed of everything essentially that it has, return that energy to the people, and then dismantle it and put it back into like the Treasury. But all these crypto people are like super, they call it bullish. Like when they're ready to like invest into crypto, they're getting bullish because they're seeing the inflation go up a ton on the US dollar. And they're saying that Bitcoin could go up to like $100,000 a coin, where it's at like 7,000 right now. Some people are saying like 1 million. So I've been seeing a timeline where there is a a positive internet structure put into place on behalf of the Alliance that will, I'm not saying this is going to happen, but I see it as a potential timeline where the new Earth, so to say, could have this 5D internet system that is built on a good stability and foundation that's not meant to manipulate people, and that our assets could be funneled and distributed through this system, and that's where the cryptocurrency could come into play. It could evolve into that.
Well, that's the quantum internet. So if you noticed, whenever Trump became president in 2016, one of his first things he did was sign a bill to initiate the quantum financial system.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
And that kind of slipped under the radar, and he put Melania in charge of it. Now that Google's unlocked, Aaron and I did this. Type in quantum financial system Trump. The second thing you pull up talks about the quantum financial system and being tied in with the Pleiadians and being a gift. And you find link after link after link. You're reading about the Pleiadians and the quantum financial system. That comes up on a Google search now. And I checked it. I showed him. I was like, dude, this is the second one down.
Wow, you're right. I just looked it up and Benjamin Fulford is one of the first ones too. And then stuff talking about galactics. That's crazy.
The Pleiadians continue to be a relevant topic in this whole thing. Like, I continually get that as a signal and a sign all the time. I'm like, all right, Pleiadians, like, let's see what you got. I'm listening. Like, let's see.
Yeah, definitely.
It definitely seems they're probably the most involved group, ET group.
I've gotten the feeling for a while that they are invested in the Q operation and involved in the Q operation. So that's very synchronistic.
I agree. So I hate to shut this down, but we've been going for almost 2 hours.
Whoa.
Oh, wow. I was wondering. I was like, I think we've been going.
This has been great.
It's been amazing.
Forever. I just looked at my notes and saw something else I was going to say about my meditation earlier. After the whole dog and the snake thing, I went back into meditation, and the first thing that came into my mind's eye was me on a roller coaster at Silver Dollar City in Branson, Missouri. And the name of the roller coaster is Wildfire, and it used to be my favorite roller coaster. Like, I rode it like 10 times in a row, but the name of it was Wildfire. I'm like, why did they just show me that? So I pulled up my phone after the meditation and went straight to the news feed, and the wildfires are happening right now in Chernobyl, causing extreme spikes in radiation to be spewing into the atmosphere. So I thought, okay, is there something more to this? How did this wildfire start in Chernobyl? And it's, basically spilling out radiation, causing this whole, I don't know, pandemic.
Yeah. So what does that mean?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
I don't know. Maybe you guys
could
feel into it, but I haven't connected any dots yet, but maybe we should keep our eyes on what's going on with
definitely. That. Wildfires in Chernobyl.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting.
Yeah. So anyway, by the way, I got my piece of folder right here.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're wearing one too.
I'm wearing a little pendant.
Nice. Yeah.
That was an intense meditation though. That was amazing.
Yeah, and the Schumann spiked, right?
Yeah.
It did. It grew right at the beginning of the meditation, and it grew throughout the whole night and the whole morning. And it actually peaked around 2 a.m. when most people were probably done meditating. But I got reports that people were like, "I was not done. I was still awake," and I'm like, "That'll happen." And so,
I think I was doing work somewhere else during.
You were.
Yeah.
You were working with the secret space programs.
You're giving them some help,
No idea.
That was sweet. Right. I think that was the sweetest thing. You offered them some water.
A PB&J.
It's so sweet.
Peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
Yeah, it was actually those single wrapped ones.
It was those like jammers or
whatever. Yeah, those jammers. Yeah. But what was weird is I had a whole case of them on top of my refrigerator, and I was like, "You want one?" And I opened up the box, but none of them were individually wrapped. And I remember thinking, I'm like, damn, now all these are going to go bad because I can't seal the box.
But who knows? Like, there's good agents, there's bad agents. But he didn't get, from what I saw, he didn't get any charges against false claims for being an agent.
I suspected from the beginning he was a agent, or he was working with some intelligence agency, and like he was activated at this time to disrupt the community, to do exactly what he's been doing.
Yeah.
To just throw a wrench in things.
I think I say think Tom DeLonge. You know, useful idiot is what a lot of people like to say. I think that he's being informed with real intel and misinformation, disinfo, whatever you want to call it. I think he's getting mixed briefings, and he believes what he's telling people. I think. Didn't
somebody remote view him?
Yeah, somebody remote viewed him. Yeah, Rob Counts had somebody remote view him, and definitely is not who he says he is.
But he believes.
But he thinks he's in integrity.
Yeah.
That's the feeling I've got the whole time. I was super into his band Angels and Airwaves for years. Like they were like my favorite band.
I was talking about Austin.
He was talking about
We're
Austin.
talking about
Austin.
Though I do think Tom is probably the same.
Gotcha. I thought you meant they remote viewed Tom.
No,
gotcha.
They remote viewed Austin. Yeah.
They checked it out.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yes, that's a good way to do research.
He looks like he's in some type of cell already. Like the way his little setup with the computers in the wall. I'm like,
it does.
Well, another thing you have to look at. So a lot of people say this guy looks like a psychopath. He has a lot of psychopathic tendencies, and people who read people or empaths can see that. Now, I did an entire presentation on voice of God technology, and I spoke here locally on it. I learned a lot while I was doing that, and they specifically pick people who already have those tendencies because the technology works better on them. So the fact that he shows those signs tells me that he's definitely being manipulated.
Right.
Definitely.
It did seem like it.
And he's like self-proclaimed DIA agent. Like he says he's never actually been to any of these offices or met with any agents, but that they've been talking to him for years, right? So that would make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
If they were talking to him via voice of God tech.
And this may even expose all those types of workers on a broader level, like that there's these types of operatives in the field, and, they're in the communities, they're offering rumors and so on, and they don't even really know they're causing any harm. They think they're doing good sometimes, which is dangerous. And again, I definitely hope the help that he needs, and we figure this out together.
Whatever the truth is, I hope it'll come out.
All right. So we're finally going to wrap this up. Everybody, please say a prayer for everything and everyone that's going on right now. This planet is going, Mother Earth needs a prayer, and so does everybody. So let's just, next time you meditate, just keep that in mind, hold space. Because I've been saying that at the end of every podcast, but it's really hard to ignore what's going on. So,
I'm glad you're saying that.
Yeah.
It's easy to get caught up in the information, but especially these children, if these claims are real, I intuitively think they are, and I can't get them out of my mind. I've never prayed or meditated so much for children before, so I just can't.
Good.
That's beautiful.
So everybody, please. Even if you don't believe it's true, something's still, there's still people suffering, and why not,
Yep. So, the intentions are definitely going to help no matter what.
Everyone has an inner child too, so there's repairs to be made on many levels. Like we've been indoctrinated from children, so like we've all kind of been a victim of this system.
Exactly.
Dude, I literally just saw a TR-3B fly over my house. I'm laying on my back deck, looking at the stars. I saw 2 flashers. I saw a power up. And then, lo and behold, like a scene from a movie, here comes a black TR-3B, unmistakable, the 3 white dots underneath, straight up triangle, cruising, completely silent, low altitude. Yeah, it was 100% TR-3B, no mistaking it, like 100% conclusive. Like, I'm not mistaking what I saw. Straight up black triangle UFO with the 3 dots, just like we see in all the footage. But it was cruising, it was fairly low, and it was silent. I mean, if a plane was flying that low, it would have been extremely loud. Just put it that way. It's funny because just the other day I watched the TR-3B documentary that Alara's in, and I was looking at all the footage. I'm like, I bet if I start looking, I'll see one. I just had a feeling. And today I was at the park walking, looking up, just imagining like a TR3B showing up above my head in broad daylight. Obviously nothing happened then, but it decided to show up tonight. It was pretty awesome. I maybe could have had time to get a picture of it, but I did not want to miss it. Like, once it wasn't even worth me risking like losing sight of it to pull my phone out and try and get it to focus on the night sky. I bet you for sure I could have caught it, but it would, by the time I would have got a picture, it would have been such at a distance. I don't even care. I don't need proof. I don't need to prove to anybody that I saw it.